Well, it's a very warm welcome back to second half independent off-tube studio commentary from the game at Portman Road. We are now just about ready to get underway. Our referee, Stuart Atwell, just checking everything, and he's ready to restart play here. Ipswich trailing Newcastle United by 3-0. So it's going to be a long old half for Ipswich unless they can get a quick goal back here early on just to try and upset the visitors, who have really been very comfortable in control of this game. Newcastle scoring inside the first minute. It took a couple of minutes for VAR to confirm it, but they have been in front pretty much since the start of this game. It's going to be a difficult one for Ipswich, but from Newcastle's point of view, they'll just want to keep up the tempo. They don't want to be too slow, because obviously if Ipswich do get a quick goal back, then suddenly things could get a little bit uncomfortable. But really, you feel this is it, Newcastle's half to control, and Newcastle's game to lose now, really, isn't it? It's myself, Paul Szczerbakowicz, by the way, and Nathan Wastell taking you through the action.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think it could come down to complacency for Newcastle, but I don't think Eddie Howe led his men get it to that stage. Of course, it's 3-0 now, very different spectrum to the late goal at the end of that first half. So I think it will be a fairly run-of-the-mill afternoon for Newcastle in the second half. If nothing severely changes based on that first half, I could see it ended 3-4-0.
Well, as I say, it's all down really to how Newcastle approach the second half in terms of wanting to go forward. I can't believe they're just going to be sitting back, but they probably won't be as pushing as far forward as they were in the first. There was one change at half-time. Ali Al-Hamadi has come on to replace Amari Hutchison. That was the one change for Ipswich at half-time. No changes for Newcastle. I'll run you through the 11s in just a second, but we'll see how this... There was an attack for Newcastle, which is actually cut out here by Leif Davis on the left for Ipswich. Now it's picked up by Isak in quite a deep position, but he can't keep it in place. So the Ipswich 11, Ari Muric in goal. It's a back four of Harry Clark, Dara O'Shea, Cameron Burgess and Leif Davis. Sam Morsey and Jens Kayuste are the two holder midfielders, with Wes Burns, Ali Al-Hamadi, who comes on for Amari Hutchison, and Sammy Schmodix, with Connor Chaplin as the front man. That might actually be a little bit different now. It may well be that Al-Hamadi has gone into the number 9 role, with Chaplin just dropping into the number 10. For Newcastle, no changes. Martin Dubravka in goal, a back four of Tino Livramento, Fabian Scher, Dan Byrne and Lewis Hall. The three in midfielder, Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Willock, with Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak as the front three. Willock now with a foul in midfield, taking down Sam Morsey. Free kick to Ipswich. To take this one quickly, and they've given it away quickly as well, with Fabian Scher stepping forward. He's going to, his pass hits the feet of Jacob Murphy, but then as he tries to win the ball back, he may have been fouled. The referee does give an advantage to Newcastle, who just choose to hold onto the ball in midfield. Bruno Guimaraes now going back towards the halfway line for Dan Byrne, but this may well be a nice sort of preview of how this second half is going to go. It's going to be Newcastle seeing a lot of the ball in Ipswich, just trying to chase after it, really.
Yeah, and again, it's what the point you made in the first half, that they're playing like the home team, just in control of the ball, moving it nicely. Newcastle, the biggest point for them, is the point I made in the first half, is the consistency factor. You know that they have the players to do it. They do it against the big teams, and it was these sorts of games where makes the difference for Newcastle, being in them European places. So for Newcastle and Eddie Howe putting in a performance like this, very good signs for them.
It certainly is, and it's to say we've been ahead of this. I say ahead, pretty much we are into this busy Christmas period now, aren't we? So it's a very good sign for Newcastle. Not so good sign for Brentford, though. They're 2-0 down now at home to Nottingham Forest. The Bees, who've been woeful away from home and excellent at home, are in danger of losing that unbeaten home record this afternoon against the Forest side, who are still there or thereabouts in that top four. It's been an excellent start to the season for Nuno Espirito Santo's side, as the free kick given to Ipswich just inside their own half. Kayuste brought down by Bruno Guimaraes, and the home side have taken it quickly, but their first thought is to go back with it now when it's O'Shea to Burgess. Looked up, thought about a long ball, but just decides to play it square to Leif Davis down the left-hand side. The second goal for Forest, by the way, it was Anthony Elanga after the goal from Manny, but it's a ball through towards the edge of the area, and now Hamadi has got through. He's trying to get a shot onto his left foot. His shot is charged down, just took a little bit too long inside the box. It's cleared back into midfield, where Ipswich have the ball back again here now with Kayuste and Morsey. Out towards the left-hand side for Davis, back to Morsey. It's with Schmodix, just around 30 yards out from goal. He goes square to Clark, now down the right-hand side for Wes Burns. There's targets in the box here if Burns can get a ball in. He puts it onto his left, does put it across him, but it's straight onto the head of Livramento, who heads it way back into midfield. Kept alive here by Burgess for Ipswich, goes in towards Davis, and closed down by Livramento. To Cameron Burgess again, big centre-back, just trying to help out a little bit in midfield here now. give Ipswich some extra bodies, but his pass towards the edge of the area is charged down. Newcastle give it away though. Half a chance here for Ipswich to keep this possession going. Still no easy routes towards the penalty area. They're about 40 yards out now with Morsey. Finds a pass down the left here for Davis. Davis with a good ball into the box. Just a little bit too much pace for Cayuste. And that's a shame. For all those passes exchanged 30, 40 yards out, it's one ball down the left and it's straight out for a goal kick.
Yeah, we'd see more of Ipswich on the ball, though, which is good. And I think we will see that. Newcastle just don't want to get to the point where they're bringing too much pressure on them, because you know that only ends one way. So, unfortunate for them. Moved the ball really nicely. That ball down the line was not good enough in the end. And it didn't amount to anything, but it looks like we have another goal in the Premier League.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to have a goal in the game where it's goalless up to now. We'll confirm that in a second. But Ipswich, in the meantime, they're trying to get on the score sheet themselves, although Chaplin is robbed of the ball, and it's a chance now for Newcastle to go forward down the left with Lewis Hall and Anthony Gordon. Gordon into Isak, back door. This is lovely combination play, and Hall is off down the left-hand side. Early ball into the box. Bruno Guimaraes with the header. It's just wide. That may have actually struck the base of the post as well. We'll see from the replay in just a second, but this is lovely from Newcastle. They start with the ball inside their own half. It's Hall and Gordon down the left, and then they just carve Ipswich apart.
Yeah, lovely. Keep it simple, but it's the most effective. Bruno Guimaraes leading the line. Came in with the header, and I think you're absolutely right, Paul. I think it's the stump of that post. Bottom right-hand corner. Oh, it did. And I'll tell you what, he's not known for his heading goals, but he got one against Ipswich, against Leicester, I should say, apologies, and the skipper was close there again.
Yeah, that's why he's got his head in his hands. He knows that it would have been a collector's item for the playmaker to get a header himself, but it wasn't to be on that occasion. Ipswich very close, though, to conceding a fourth. They're now trying to get forwards. West Ham, by the way, have conceded a first this afternoon. It's West Ham 0, Brighton 1. And it's Max Wefer, the central midfielder, Dutch midfielder there for Dutch or German. I think he's German, isn't he, Wefer? But in any case, it's 1-0 to Brighton in that game. So West Ham still very hot and cold in terms of their form this season. It is Brentford 0, Nottingham Forest 2, Ipswich 0, Newcastle 3, and West Ham 0, Brighton 1. So if you had a triple with 3 away wins in the Premier League this afternoon, you'll be laughing right now. Although, just as I say that, there's a VAR check at the London Stadium, so it may well be that that game will be brought back to being goalless. But we've got 52 minutes on the clock here. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 3. And the worry for Ipswich is that although they've had a bit of possession at the start of this half, it's actually Newcastle that have hit the post. Yeah,
and Dubravka's not had much to do. He hasn't been the busiest man put under enough danger, but coming forward here looks dangerous.
Yeah, Murphy loses the ball in midfield. Cayuste takes advantage with Chaplin now, but again, just no route to goal in front of the penalty area. It goes back to Burgess. Davis now into Cayuste. To Sam Morsey. This is around 40 yards out from goal. Morsey into Cayuste again. With options here left and right. The ball is played over towards Davis, but he's under pressure, having to play it back now towards Burgess. Burgess's pass is charged down by Livramento. Newcastle back in possession now with Tonali, angling a ball over towards the left. They're taken down by Gordon. He's under pressure from Clark, who's back in towards Lewis Hall, and it just seems like Ipswich are having to work very hard to keep possession, whereas Newcastle aren't.
Yeah, look very comfortable, look very confident as well. It's been a really good display by Eddie Howe's men so far in 53 minutes. Really professional and really confident, know exactly what they're doing, and coming forward again looking dangerous.
They are, with Isak now breaking into the box. He's trying to sort of flick it forward with his left foot. He gets dispossessed, but then it's been won back by Murphy. Murphy into the box. He can't get a shot away first time, but he finds Isak, who threads it in. And it is a fourth goal for Newcastle. It's been coming. They hit the post a few minutes ago, but Alexander Isak now is a hat-trick this afternoon. It's been a fantastic performance, and it is his hat-trick. He scored on the first minute, scored in the second minute of added time in the first half, and now he scores in the 9th minute of the second half. It's been a fabulous performance from the Swedish international. Not too much reaction there from Eddie Howe, but he'll be delighted with the way his side have played. Isak ran into the box first off. He gets stopped, but the real problem there for Ipswich, I think, is that Davis had gone back and then he never got into a position to help in the offside. The offside has let Ipswich down a couple of times this afternoon, and in the end, once that ball finds Isak, it's just a very comfortable finish from close range.
Yeah, and credit to Murphy, back heel in the box, bouncing over them, and it's brilliant. But the fact that Isak takes it down with his left, and he has the time just to hover his weight back onto his right to then shoot. Too much time for him, made far too easy.
It is too easy, but as I say, absolute credit there to Murphy. He's had 2 fabulous assists this afternoon. But you have to say as well, the control with the left and the finish with the right is excellent from Isak. It's a very good point you make that he shouldn't have been given the time to do that, but he does, and it's a fourth goal for Newcastle. And those Ipswich fans, they weren't too happy to see Isak sliding down on his knees. But just to confirm as well, that goal at the London Stadium has been given. So it is West Ham 0, Brighton 1. It's Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4. And with only 10 minutes on the clock, I'm not so sure that that's the end of the scoring here. Ipswich need to get on. Really, as I said, we're looking at the Ipswich bench now as well. Looks like potentially Calvin Phillips getting ready to come on.
I mean, he was the man that went through my head later in the first half, to be honest. Get a bit of control in that midfield.
It's, as I say, I mean, the expression after the horse is bolted really sort of springs to mind. Bringing on a defensive midfielder to get the game under your control when you're 4-0 down at home is far too late for that. But I suppose for all the experience he's had as a manager, this will also be a learning curve for Kieran McKenna as well.
Oh, of course, yes. May just be tucked under the file of one to forget, unfortunately for them. Up against a good Newcastle side, of course. You've got to give Ipswich respect for that. You just thought being at home, they'd given it a bit more of a go and a bit more quality in the game.
Yeah, I think it's that early goal probably just derailed them, but then it took a while for Newcastle to get their second. Ipswich just couldn't really respond, but here come Newcastle again. They're carving open Ipswich now, and it's Willock breaking into the box. Willock wants to go for goal. I mean, he could have given Isak his fourth goal. Isak was waiting for a tap in there. But I'm not going to criticise Joe Willock too much. He doesn't get that many goals. He's been out injured. His side are 4-0 up away from home. So I suppose he has the right to go for goal, but the pass was on as well. Oh,
brilliant pass by Bruno Guimaraes. The pass was on, but he only wanted one thing. And he was off balance, and it went way over in the end. And I touched on Matt's sharpness before the game, and I just think he's looked slightly off the pace, and it's just getting him back into the swing of things. Unfortunately for him, we've seen him score some lovely goals for Newcastle, but there he was way off.
He was way off, and he's in trouble now here, Joe Willock, as well. I wonder if he's just hurt himself in that last attempt to go for goal. The expression is that he's in pain, but he's all right, so hopefully he should be okay to play on. It's a very successful footballing family, of course. One of three professional footballing brothers. It's Joe, the one that's reached the heights of being a regular Premier League player. See Eddie Howe, they're just in discussion. I mean, he looks a little bit groggy though, Willock. I mean, he wants to stay on the field, but he may not be his choice. I mean, if the way that he's now, the way he's sort of acting, it's almost like there's a potential head injury there. But Calvin Phillips is getting ready to come on here for Ipswich. So we're going to see the Manchester City Aloni on the field very soon, and I'm assuming it's either for Morsi or Kayuste, you'd imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be pretty much light for light, but like you say, the game may have just gone from them. Be very interesting to see. Joe Willock, it's a great point. I thought the same, that it looked like a head injury the way he was talking about. I couldn't see where it came from. Maybe the way he landed.
Yeah, you're right. I think it is the way he's landed that's caused him a problem here, Joe Willock. So he's going to be going off the field. And there's sort of an arm up there, whether that's an acknowledgement. We'll see from this replay here. He takes the shot. Yeah, the camera then follows the ball, so we don't see how Willock landed. But in the meantime, there's going to be a substitution here for Newcastle, you'd imagine. I can't see anyone get ready on that Newcastle bench just yet. So it may well be that Eddie Howe just wants that confirmation. But in terms of substitutes, there's a couple of ready replacements really there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at Sean Longstaff, the man that does play a little bit of first-team football in and out for Newcastle. Obviously, Lewis Miley as well. He's just come back from injury as well. So there's a couple of options there for Newcastle if they wanted them.
Absolutely. Goal being won at the London Stadium. Brighton weren't in front for long in that one. It's now West Ham 1, Brighton 1. We're just waiting for confirmation of the goal scorer there. It's Mohamed Kudus. We can confirm it now. Kudus with the goal there for West Ham. So say it's just Ipswich and Brentford that have failed to get on the score sheet this afternoon. They're both down to 0 at home. Brentford 2-0 down at home to Forest. Ipswich 4-0 down at home to Newcastle in this game that we're covering for you. An official independent off-tube studio commentary. It's Newcastle in possession at the edge of their own box. Long clearance from Big Dan Burn over the halfway line. Some work here to do with that header back towards goal from O'Shea. And he doesn't get enough power on it, but he can be very grateful to his centre-back colleague there, Cameron Burgess, that he was covering. So he gets the clearance down the left-hand side. Schmodix heads it down, but he can't control it here for Ipswich. And Newcastle have it back now with Willock going back towards Scher, who's being closed down here by Al-Hamidi. But it still gets back towards Dubravka, who's having a very quiet afternoon so far.
Yeah, and he'll like that. It's an easy paycheck for him, isn't it? Not much to do between the sticks. Obviously not the first team. Number one, like you say, he's the number one, but not officially Newcastle's number one. But yeah, it seemed very easy afternoon, and that just sums it up for Ipswich. They haven't put that man under any pressure whatsoever.
No, they haven't, but they might do now, though, because it was a poor clearance out from the back, but then it's a poor ball from Cayuste. Didn't really think about where his teammates were. He just sort of played a pass straight back into the box, and they reached Dubravka. And it's now Murphy down the right-hand side for Newcastle into Bruno Guimaraes, who just gets dispossessed by Leif Davis. But it's a really poor pass from Davis, straight to Sandro Tonali. And Newcastle now have it back here in midfield down the left-hand side. Tonali into Bruno Guimaraes. Ball has gone on the overlap, but it's just a short ball down the left here for Gordon. Gordon holding it up, being closed down there by Wes Burns. Back towards the halfway line now for Sandro Tonali. He's under a little bit of pressure as well, but Newcastle still looking very comfortable on the ball, and it's going to be an issue here, I think, for Ipswich. Not just in this game, but in games to come. They've got to find a way of just... I mean, as I say, it's easy to say that. I mean, they're not the first newly promoted team to struggle against top sides, but this afternoon I think might just be a bit of a wake-up call to Kieran McKenna that his team perhaps need to be set up a little bit more for the sort of ugly midfield rather than trying to have too many attacking players. We'll get your thoughts in a second, because Newcastle are on the attack now themselves with Livramento down the right-hand side. He holds it up and goes back to Sandro Tonali. What about crossing it? Just plays it short here to Murphy. Murphy's ball into the box is away from its intended target, cut out there by Morsi. But as Ipswich look to try and get the ball away, I just wonder whether or not they benefit from having a little bit more steel in that midfield rather than trying to play the same way as they always have done before they got promoted.
Yeah, sticking to that sort of setup. The balance has looked off and has looked light, and maybe that's why Kieran McKenna at this point is making a couple of changes. But they do seem fairly light for light. Cajuste and Connor Chaplin coming off, and Calvin Phillips will take Cajuste's place, you would think. And Connor Chaplin, of course, was leading the line this afternoon. Will come off for Taylor. So, of course, no Liam Delap. Taylor comes on to take his place, the young Irishman.
The young Irishman is on. He did get a goal in that game last week against Wolves, didn't he? So he would have been absolutely delighted about that. But he comes on in very different circumstances in this game, trying to add a little bit more steel to his side, but they're already under serious trouble. I mean, Willock looked like he was in real trouble there again, but for the time being, I think Joe Willock is still on the field. I just wonder whether or not Newcastle were getting ready to... They are, but Newcastle are getting ready to make a triple change here now, so we've got to pay attention with our team sheets here, because we've got Trippier, Longstaff and Barnes all we're getting ready to come on.
Yeah, and again, I think there'll be like-for-like changes. You might see Barnes come on for Anthony Gordon, rest of the bigger players' legs. Trippier coming on for Livramento, a bit of experience to see out the game. And of course, Joe Willock picking up that injury.
Yeah, but Ipswich are giving the ball away, and suddenly Newcastle are on the attack. It's a strike coming in. It's not the best from Anthony Gordon. He needs to do a little bit better there, really. He got it onto his preferred right foot, but it's just a ball straight down the middle, really. It's a lovely ball from Bruno Guimaraes to win it back for Newcastle, then spread the play out towards the left-hand side, but the effort just too close to the keeper. Yeah,
it was quite central, wasn't it? It was fairly obvious what he was going for, but finding that far corner... Yeah, it wasn't anywhere near for Anthony Gordon. Maybe the last thing we see attacking-wise for that man, because he may just make way for Harvey Barnes.
Well, just as we say that, Newcastle giving the ball away, and suddenly it's a chance here for Ipswich to get forward down the right-hand side towards the edge of their strike coming in. Or in fact, it was a shot come cross from that right-hand side from Wes Burns. But it doesn't get the curl on it. It was too far away from a teammate to be a cross, and it was too far away from goal to be a shot on target.
Yeah, it's just... complete no man's land, awkward, too fast. The height was an awkward one as well, and complete waste in the end. You can't really see what he's going for. If it is a shot, it's a really poor one, but it's gone out for a Newcastle goal kick, and that gives Newcastle a chance to ring in the triple change.
Yeah, triple change, and as you suspected, Livramento is off to be replaced by Kieran Trippier. So that's the first change for Newcastle. Livramento, Murphy and Willock are the ones to go off. So actually, Gordon stays on for the time being, and that's quite, as I say, it's quite rare for Barnes and Gordon to be on the field at the same time. Normally, it's one coming on for the other. It's, I suppose at 4-0 away from home, Eddie Howe will feel this is the time to try and experiment with a slightly different variation.
I guess so. Very heavy, busy period of the festive season, so I'm quite surprised that he's left Anthony Gordon on the field. Might feel like he wants to get himself amongst the goal scorers, though. So, yeah, might experiment, knock one of them two into the right side position, but Sean Longstaff coming on for out of sharpness Joe Willock, so that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, now there's going to be perhaps another change here for Newcastle, because as soon as that ball was played down the left here for the Magpies, there was a strong challenge there, Morsi on Bruno Guimaraes, and the Ipswich captain is going to be the first player in the book this afternoon. It's taken 64 minutes to see a yellow card. We'll see from this replay here. I mean, it's a shot, but there's also a little bit of a knee there as well, I think, from Sam Morsey. That's probably what's annoyed the referee there. And Bruno Guimaraes certainly seemed to be showing that he had a bit of a dead leg, but looks like he's going to be okay to play on. Yeah,
I think so. What I could see from Sam Morsey, it's one of them where he's going to stand down onto the turf, but he scraped the top of his studs down the Achilles of Bruno Guimaraes. It would have been a bit of a painful one for him. Accidental, but deemed a yellow card, and rightfully so, I think.
And free kick now to Newcastle, just at the edge of their own penalty area. Let's see both managers to get some further instructions out to their players. So from Kieran McKenna's point of view, of course, as a manager of a promoted team, you know you're going to have these write-off days where you've just got an opposition that are too strong on the day, but Ipswich still needs to obviously learn some lessons from this in terms of how they set up in future games. Still plenty of time left in the season, and there are plenty of sides that are still in trouble, so Ipswich certainly don't want to worry too much about a result like this.
No, of course not, and they sit in that position where they're closest to safety, so it's one of them that you tuck under and live to fight another day. There's a lot of points still to pick up, but of course losing 4-0 in any game, it's not great to take.
No, it's always going to be, as I say, it's not an ideal start to the Christmas period, but here comes Ipswich now. Long ball to Al-Hamadi, who takes it down with a header, but then it's a bit of a collision there with Longstaff, and that is going to be a free kick in favour of Newcastle. Al-Hamadi just a little bit too keen there to go for that one. We'll see again. Yeah, he doesn't even try to go for the ball, he just turns his shoulder, runs straight into Sean Longstaff, who certainly felt that as well, but he's going to be okay to play on. And Newcastle are playing on down the right-hand side. It's Barnes going back in towards Longstaff. That's a lovely ball out towards the left. And then Bruno Guimaraes breaks in the box. He tries to thread a ball back towards Isak, who is hunting his fourth goal of the afternoon. But Bruno Guimaraes' ball is charged down by Dara O'Shea, and Newcastle will have a corner.
Yeah, done well. But at this point, over an hour gone, see nothing going forward from Ipswich. Completely not good enough. And you were putting it down to anyone to score next. It would be Newcastle. For sure, but only one corner apiece. In terms of stats, very minimal cards. We only had the first one moments ago, and only 2 corners.
That is a surprise. After 66 minutes, to see 1 yellow card and 2 corners for a game that's had 4 goals is a surprise. But the corner kick's taken short. It's then floated to the back post, headed up in the air. It's going to drop perfectly for Harvey Barnes, but Leif Davis was stood just in front of Harvey Barnes, and that immediately made him just angle that ball up, and he angles it so far up, he flares it over the bar in the end. But it looked initially that corner kick was overhit. That ball from the corner was overhit. But of course, when you got Dan Bird in there, he can rescue balls that look hopeless, really.
Absolutely. And Harvey Barnes, we saw him score a volley like that at Sheffield United for Leicester a couple of seasons ago. Absolutely rocketed it in. And with a technique like that, it's always very easy just to top it like he did. And he went way over the bar in the end. But he's just come on the field of play. Probably wanted that chance maybe 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And consider the scoreline is 4-0. I don't think Eddie Howe will mind some of his attacking players taking slightly more speculative efforts, because of course they can allow themselves that little bit of a luxury with the scoreline being what it is. Dubravka now just almost insisting that the pass was played back to him just so he has something to do, and that's not being cruel to Ipswich. It's just that even when they've had a lot of the ball, it's just not really got close to the Newcastle penalty area.
No, absolutely not. I haven't troubled him or Dubravka whatsoever, but the major's troubling here because that's a really, really poor ball.
Yeah, it's been given away in midfield, and suddenly it's given an opportunity for Sammy Shmodics to go towards the edge there. He gets charged down though, and the ball is now back on the Newcastle possession. Just to give you an idea, Ipswich have had 6 efforts on goal, of which 1 of them has been on target, 1 on target, whereas Newcastle 15 efforts on goal, 7 on target, and of course 4 have hit the back of the net as well. So it's been a very good afternoon's work for the visiting Magpies, and it's a long old journey as well from the northeast to the east coast, but certainly to East Anglia here where Suffolk is based. So it would have been a long old trip for those Newcastle fans, assuming the players would have flown. But here come Ipswich now with their attack down the right-hand side. It's a cross into the box which is charged down, and Lewis Hall, he was saying it should be our ball. He leaves it, and he was right. It is going to be a goal kick to Newcastle. So we're over the 3-quarter mark in this game. It is now 69 minutes gone. It's Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4, and it will be Nathan to take us through to full time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Goal kick to Newcastle. Martin Dubravka to take. Couple of changes left in the stock for the Tractor Boys and for Newcastle, of course. Both made 3 changes between them, playing out from the back of Newcastle. And the lovely 1-2, Bruno Guimaraes round the corner for Lewis Hall. Has he kept that in and down the line? He has, I believe. But they have given it away, and chance for Ipswich to get forward if they can move it well. Al-Hamadai, it's an asking ball for Taylor, and yeah, he's run it out of play, unfortunately. 20 minutes to go. Well, I thought we'd see a bit more of Ipswich in this tie in the second half, but in terms of possession, we saw it's 62% possession for Newcastle in the second half compared to the first, which was 52%. And so, if anything, they've been more dominant in the second half.
They have. Ipswich started brightly, but it didn't last very long. Then Newcastle get a very quick goal to make it 4-0. That sort of completely then kills the game. And Ipswich haven't really been able to respond since. But they have just responded now with Al-Hamadi breaking into the box. He was stopped by Dan Burns, so Ipswich have won themselves a corner. They have won themselves
a corner on the far side. Third corner of the game with 20 minutes to play. And the going out to take it will be Leif Davis, the man from Newcastle. Of course, he'll play the left-footed in-swinging corner. Still in fine voice there at Portman Road. The Ipswich fans, even though they're trailing 4-0. And, well, give themselves a glimmer of hope if they can get themselves some form of goal here. Leif Davis floating it to the back post. Can it be kept alive? Bit of a bounce around, but it's hook clear. Fabian Schär takes one to the face. And Ipswich will have themselves a throw on the near side, which Calvin Phillips will take. In and out of that Ipswich team, of course. Went to Ipswich for more regular game time. But hasn't seen out and out, week in, week out game time. He's on the ball now. He may just float this one to the back post. Not like a bad ball. It's fallen out to the right-hand side. Wes Burns looking behind, far too obvious, and picked off, and maybe Newcastle trying to get away very early. I'm still surprised that Alexander Isak, after picking up that hat-trick, 4-0 up, I'm still surprised he's on the field of play.
Yeah, I think that he's had his injury and his fitness problems as well, so it really would be one of those things where it would make sense to perhaps take him off for the last 15-20 minutes, but here come Ipswich. Yeah,
looking promising with the run. Shot came in, showed too much of it at the Newcastle defenders, and hook clear with Dan Burns' big right foot. 18 minutes to go. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4.
So would it be a swap with the Sula coming on then, or would you want to see some sort of other variation?
No, I think it'd be a Sula. He hasn't had much game time. He's a young man. He's trying to get bedded in by Eddie Howe, and I just think 4-0 up. It's a great opportunity to get him more game time.
Yeah, I think so. He's made a long trip, obviously, to be on the bench for a game like this, so it would make sense. Newcastle have made a triple change in one block, so they still have got 2 substitutions in 2 separate blocks if they want them. So there is still that option, I think, to try and get him on. As you mentioned, Lewis Miley as well is another player coming back from injury. But we mentioned 2 substitutes, and actually Eddie Howe has now got a 3rd player off that bench that is going to be coming on. So what do we know? It's going to be Miguel Almiron coming on for Alexander Isak. So who's going to get pushed into the number 9 role out of the guys left on the pitch then?
I believe Anthony Gordon may just go into that role. Bit of a interesting substitution that. Didn't fancy bringing Will Asula onto the field, the former Sheffield United man. But Alexander Isak will get a very nice round of applause from them travelling Newcastle fans making the long trip down south, because he has himself a hat-trick, and he got the game underway only a minute in, and him very much back to his best, double figures in the Premier League now.
It's superb. Double figures before Christmas is always a good sign, I think, for a striker. And of course, Miguel Almiron, who at one time was Newcastle's sort of linchpin on that right-hand side, he's really fallen out of favour, not necessarily through anything other than just a bit of a drop-off in form and injuries, but there's just been so much attacking talent has arrived in the meantime.
Yeah, heavily linked away in January is the Paraguayan. And Newcastle just on the ball, left-hand side of their own box.
I just wonder if that's one of the reasons why he's come on as well, just to perhaps get him back in the shop window, because there is this chance that he may be on the move in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Could be good advertisement for him. The ball just stabbed down the line and all the way into the hands of Martin Dubravka, I believe, picked it up as it went off the field of play. The 2 other games in the Premier League, Brentford 0, Nottingham Forest 2. Aina in the first half on the other side of the break. Anthony Elanga getting the second goal for Forest. And at the London Stadium, Viper put Brighton 1-0 up. And Kudus has got West Ham back into the game. So that is 1-1 as it stands. And Sam Morsey's just going to carry the ball forward for Ipswich. Needs to get the ball moving a bit quicker. Just all a bit slow, not committing enough bodies forward, Ipswich, with 16 minutes to go. Calvin Phillips going sideways. And now they're going to hook it forward. That's a better ball. And Leif Davis just underneath. That's a really poor pass. Just no one there, no support, and it is deemed in a defensive manner for Newcastle far too easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, the scoreline in this game is such that you don't expect Ipswich to be sort of tearing up the pitch, but just put a little bit more of a fight into it, because I think, as you say, it's been a very, very comfortable afternoon for the back four of Newcastle. They've had virtually no defensive work. We've seen Scher and Byrne almost allowing themselves to be like midfielders for most of the game.
Yeah, very run-of-the-mill for the Toon Army. With 15 to go, Calvin Phillips, left-hand side of the centre circle. He's having to check back once again. Just don't fancy themselves when they do go forward, Ipswich. He just seems a bit short of confidence at the minute. Man goes down on the far side, and he isn't going to get a free kick off Harvey Barnes. And it will be a throw to Newcastle. And at this point, for Newcastle, I think it's just a case of keeping that match tempo low, keeping the crowd out of the game, and just seeing this out for the last quarter of an hour.
Absolutely. No injuries, no silly yellow cards. It's an important trait for an ambitious team that wants to be top four and wants to be winning trophies, that you need to know how to see out a game and how to control it, even when it's pretty much been more than done and dusted. It's style points now, and as you say, just a comfortable possession. And say every team needs to practice that in match conditions, and Newcastle have the chance to do that now.
Bruno Guimaraes in the heart of his own half. Oh, he's taken off the ball fairly late. And Al Hamadi, he's been fairly quiet since he's come on the field, hasn't he? And that is just pure and utter frustration.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most obvious yellow card there for Stuart Atwell to give out. Because Guimaraes turning away, and I mean it's really, I mean, it's cynical from Al Hamadi, because there is absolutely no way of getting on the ball. And why would you want to take out Bruno Guimaraes when your side are 4-0 down with 14 minutes to go? And it's no surprise there's a little committee of Newcastle players just telling Al Hamadi, with Big Dan Byrne in the front row, telling him exactly what they think of him. Because if this was 0-0 and it was a feisty game, then you expect that kind of challenge, and there'd be Newcastle players challenging like that as well. But if you're 4-0 down, you don't need to do that. No,
the referee's having a word with him as well. And I mean, if you got Dan Byrne leading the attack for having a bit of a word, it's not a bad outing, is it? I'd be happy standing behind him, I'd say that. And,
yeah, he can be the spokesman.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Fabian Schär just on the free kick, going to go short to that man Bruno Guimaraes. The skipper, of course, for Newcastle, 1-2, and it's lovely work into the centre of Lewis Hall, out to the far side. Harvey Barnes now on that left side, freed him up to be on that side. Ball comes into the back post over Miguel Almiron's head, and it will be a goal kick for Ipswich. 77 minutes on the clock. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4, and they're very much enjoying themselves, and it's very much a brilliant outset and a very much a perfect night for Newcastle to carry this into that Aston Villa fixture.
No, absolutely. And to say Villa have had a tough game against City, of course they'll be buoyant, of course, after beating Man City, but now a double change here for Ipswich. Wes Burns and Sammy Schmodix are the two players to go off, and they're replaced by Johnson and Broadhead.
Broadhead, of course, coming on the field. He'll be on that wide side, and Ben Johnson, more of a full-back than anything, so it'll be interesting to see where he does line up in that Ipswich line. But that's the last throw of the dice for Kieran McKenna and his men, and Muric, he's going to kick it long this time, and I think he's learned his lesson from the first half. Dan Burns taking it down with a neat touch, but Sam Morsey wins it back well. From Guimaraes in the centre circle, of course, on a yellow card, feeds it into Nathan Broadhead, down the line it goes for Al Hamadi in the box, left hand side, stood up by two Newcastle players, back to Nathan Broadhead, fancies his chances into the bottom corner. Was it a bad attempt? Dubravka got down well, and strong fist away, and it was through a crowd of bodies as well.
It was through a crowd of bodies. It was curling. The pitch is very slippery, the ball is slick, so Dubravka needs to make sure he's seeing that one and making a good save, and he did. And in fairness, he's had such a quiet afternoon that it was important that he made the save there. But Ben Johnson has come on the field and has given away a free kick within a few seconds here. Although we didn't make much contact with Lewis Hall, but the Newcastle man is still down in pain.
Yeah, I think that was fairly soft, to be frank. But we're just seeing a replay of that Broadhead. He was carving it and bounced before Dubravka. A bit of an awkward bounce, but wasn't really troubling him. And he'll want that clean sheet, of course, Dubravka. That's the real first test of the second half for him. He's another one that's been linked away from Newcastle, but he'll take the free kick from that fairly soft foul given away. 11 minutes to go, plus any additional in this one, and Newcastle just looking to play out. Of course, we talk about games in the future, and you've touched on it rightly so, Paul, that Ipswich travel to the Emirates as well just after Christmas. So you can never count them out. They've gone to London and got some surprise results, of course, beating Tottenham 2-1, of course, comes to mind. So it's not impossible, but it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look good. I mean,
and then they welcome Chelsea, of course, as well.
Then they welcome Chelsea before games away to Fulham and then at home to Bristol Rovers in the FA Cup. But fifth and final change here for Newcastle now. It's going to be Lewis Miley, as Nathan mentioned. He's coming back from an injury. It's important for him to get some game time, and he's on for Bruno Guimaraes.
Bruno Guimaraes has had a fantastic afternoon, handing the armband to Kieran Trippier, the former skipper, and the Brazilian makes way with a fantastic outing this afternoon. Very much enjoyed himself at Portman Road. And Lewis Miley, for the first time in a fair long time, is going to come on the field of play and get 10 minutes. A valuable 10 minutes on the field. But it's interesting for me that we didn't see Will Asula. That might just tell me everything I need to know in Eddie Howe's thoughts, that maybe he's not quite ready, and Eddie Howe just doesn't fancy him yet.
No, and it's a strange one, that, isn't it, really? You'd think that coming on directly for Isak would have made sense. He didn't fancy that. He wanted to try someone else in that number 9 role for the final few minutes. And yeah, it's all part of a learning curve. Really long trip for Asula. Doesn't get on the pitch this afternoon, but you'd imagine with the busy Christmas period, he's got a good chance of making an appearance then.
And Miguel Almiron trying to make nuisance of himself with Kieran Trippier. Nice touch by Almiron. Stabs it backwards to Fabian Schär. Tonali just back to Dan Burn. And they'll keep hold of the ball fairly comfortably. And all the way back to Dubravka. It's been a very professional performance by Newcastle so far. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4, 9 minutes to play. And, well, I'm a bit early for you, Paul, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Well, it's going to be a Newcastle play, but who would you put down as your player of the match? Isak's a very obvious choice with the hat-trick.
Isak's a very obvious choice. I think that Murphy as well had a fantastic first half. I think it's going to be between those two. I mean, neither of them are left on the pitch anymore, but if it's going to be anybody, it's either going to be Isak with the hat-trick or Murphy with the 2 assists and the excellent performance on that right-hand side as well.
I think a dark horse shot may have just been Tonali as well, doing all the unselfish work in that number 6 role for Newcastle. Ben Johnson just on the ball inside his own half.
I mean, Tonali's had an excellent game. I just think that... with Isak scoring a hat-trick, it'd be very difficult not to give it to him. But here come Ipswich now, they've got a bit of space as well.
Broadhead driving into a bit of space, gives it to El Hamidi, left-hand side. Need to move a bit quicker, a bit slow on it, a bit obvious what they're doing. Shot comes in, and it's actually gone out for a goal kick. Thought it took a nick, but in the end, well over. And that just sums up the way Ipswich has been. And just when the pace picks up, they've slowed it down, allowed Newcastle to get back in, and it's a waste.
It is a waste. I mean, he takes too long for the shot there, Hamidi, and when he finally gets the shots away, it's a poor effort, really. I mean, it looked like he was going to get. It looked like he had a deflection because he got it so far wide. But it's just the way. It's just the contact he makes with it. It's a poor strike in it.
Yeah, it really is. Bad day at the office for the Tractor Boys. Ed Sheeran won't be a happy camper watching on for his side. Dubravka just put the ball in the centre of his 6-yard box. He's going to glide the ball long to the far side. Looking for Harvey Barnes' head, misses him, and Ben Johnson will take it down in the centre circle. And just going back to Leif Davis on the near side, and under pressure once again, and giving it straight to the feet of Lewis Miley. His first touches, well, it evades him in the end. And Ipswich with a chance to come forward. Looks like Nathan Broad is set up in a bit of a central role, just delayed the pass again. Lovely run by Leif Davis, and Trippier used all his experience to play it off that man and win Newcastle a throw. Very well done by the current skipper for Newcastle. But again, it was such an obvious pass down the line, but one he should have made.
Yes, absolutely. The pass was on, and he's got to be able to see that. But as the ball now goes back towards the edge of the Newcastle penalty area, just wonder from Kieran McKenna's point of view how he approaches his full-time team talk with his players. So you can't obviously be praising them, but then at the same time, they've got an even tougher game coming up in the next few days, so he needs to be trying to encourage them. Here come Newcastle with the ball over the top from Trippier, which is just about dealt with here, still chased down by Almiron.
I do want to talk about Nottingham Forest, who look like they're getting all 3 points. Would put them up to 3rd, can you believe? 1 point ahead of Arsenal for the time being, until Arsenal go to Selhurst Park later this evening at 5:30, which will be covered on our service. Ball down the line for Al Hamidi, up against Tonali, furthest man back, right hand side, about 30 yards from goal. He's just waiting for support. He's not really getting it at the minute. Drops it back to Johnson. That's allowed Newcastle to get in a defensive structure. It's all about pride at this point for Ipswich. Leif Davis, it's just all a bit slow. You could call it methodical, but I always think they've looked more dangerous when they move the ball quickly. They just haven't done enough of that. But they are moving a little bit quicker now. Broadhead into Sam Morsey. Bang in the centre of the Newcastle half. But there's so many bodies back there for Newcastle. They just can't break them down at the minute. Calvin Phillips trying to force the issue. Ball over the top, headed down. Lewis Miley's picked it up on the edge of the box. Maybe a chance for him to show his worth since come back from injury. Nice little run. Drops it to Anthony Gordon. It's going to look in behind. Looking for Almiron. He's fast. But he isn't that fast. And just for a split second, Paul, I thought he was in behind.
Well, it was a very good ball. I just thought that it was just probably that little bit too close to Muric, who in the end was confident enough to actually just play it out from the back without even picking it up inside his own penalty area. In the meantime, Gordon seems to be in a bit of trouble there. He's just down on his haunches momentarily. But yeah, again, Newcastle pushing for that fifth late on. Wasn't too far away, but now Gordon looks like he's in a bit of trouble. And Newcastle could be in trouble because, I mean, he's showing it like it's it looks like it's Broadhead's shoulder going into his face or his mouth there. But depending on whether they class this as a head injury or not, if it's not, then of course, well, he's got a split lip, so he's going to have to go off the pitch momentarily. But if he has to remain, I'm not sure they'll be allowed to make another substitution, will they?
Well, this is the point we were making as well, that they put him up front and not decided to bring Asula on. And if you're keeping Anthony Gordon out there for 90 minutes in such a busy period, you would kick yourself if he came off injured. Unfortunately for him, it's just an impact injury. For Newcastle fans, it may have been a bit worrying. But yeah, they couldn't make another substitution, so he's just getting dried up from that split lip. So Newcastle temporarily down to 10 with 4.5 plus any additional to play. Ball down the line to Trippier is a good one, and he's looking down the line again for Miguel Almiron. He's at a foot rate to Muric, and Almiron didn't fancy that one and ducked out the way of it.
He did duck out the way of it, but at least it was a bit closer to Almiron this time. The previous one, Muric was always favourite. There was a second of doubt, as it's going to be a free kick on the halfway line now to Ipswich. A foul there on Al Hamadi from Fabian Schär. I'm not so sure that Schär was just fouling in terms of tactics. I think that Al Hamadi's had a couple of bites, a couple of Newcastle players. I think Schär was just letting him know that, I think. Yeah,
a bit of a what they call a receipt, I think, giving him one back. Nathan Broadhead has it on the edge of the box, but the flag goes up, I do believe, for offside in the end, and that'll be a free kick to Newcastle on the edge of the box. Gordon is back on, so they're back up to 11 players. We've got 11 versus 11. He's going to be okay, and he's going to see the full 90 minutes. Free kick's just gone short to Martin Dubravka on the edge of the box centrally, and they can start again, Newcastle. And well, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I said I could see this finishing 3 or 4-0, so my prediction was right.
Yes,
Maybe we should have put some money on it.
Absolutely, yes. But so our predictions are always right when we don't back them. That's the problem, isn't it? It's always when you back them that they go wrong.
Yep.
But no, it's been a very, very good afternoon for Newcastle. It was expected that Newcastle would come here and play well. They've been playing well in the last few weeks. But then Ipswich played well last week away to Wolves, and as I say, who knows? I mean, if that goal from Isak doesn't come in the first minute, it could have been a different game. I still think Newcastle, that their application today is such, I think they would have been winners today, but that obviously that early goal just completely put everything in their favour, and they haven't looked back.
Tasty fixture. We've mentioned Aston Villa on Boxing Day at St James's Park. That'll be one to definitely tune in for. And Sean Longstaff, touch on the ball just in the centre circle, keeping hold of it, and now it's up to Newcastle they'll want a clean sheet, of course, with the performance they've put in. Back to Martin Dubravka. Had such a fantastic defensive record a couple of seasons ago, Newcastle, and just started to leak goals all of a sudden, but it's been a strong defensive unit today for when they've had to defend, which is slightly rare. Lewis Smiley going to float the ball out to the near side, taken down on the chest by Almiron, inside Longstaff, edge of the box, right hand side, trying to stab it through to an on-rushing Gordon. Couldn't find him. Second bite at the cherry. Trippier down the line. Well read, Leif Davis. And it'll be a Newcastle throw on the near side. And they've just upped the tempo ever so slightly. Look like they may be wanting to get a fifth. Trippier, just right hand side. He's another one that's linked away. The ex-England international, of course, retired from from international football now. Ball over to the far side. Harvey Barnes. Nice one too with Lewis Smiley. Of course, another Newcastle left-back who is actually playing for Newcastle, and he skipped away from his man, clipped over to the back post, and just for a minute it looked like Almiron was going to tap it in, but the big tall frame of Muric is going to pick that one out of the sky.
Muric makes a save, but in the middle of the 6-yard box at the edge of the seat, you've got Anthony Gordon saying, look, just point him, he's pointing to his feet, just saying, that's where I wanted the ball there, because the pass was on, but unfortunately Hall tries the aerial option, which if you're going to do that against Muric from that close, you've got to get it right because he is a very tall keeper. Then, of course, when he jumps and he raises his arms in the air, it's going to be very difficult to get it over his head. Yeah,
if you're gliding it like such, you're asking for one thing. Calvin Phillips feeds it inside to Al-Hamadi in the centre circle. Minute to play. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4. It's going to be Sam Morsey to carry the ball forward. And that's a good ball into Nathan Broadhead. Picked up a couple of pockets of space and he's going to drop it onto his right foot. Thinks about the shot and delays it. And he may just get a corner out of this one as the tackle came in. And it's going to be deemed a goal kick in the end. Didn't pull the trigger.
No, he didn't. There's absolutely no appeal from Ipswich players either. So it must have just got a nick off him as he was trying to play that pass down the... trying to get that ball into the box. It's going to be Dubravka now to get us restarted with around 30 seconds before we hit injury time.
4 minutes into injury time at Brentford, and it's Brentford 0, Nottingham Forest 2. So looks like the 3 points are going the way of Forest, and they'll go up into third, even if it's just temporarily. And West Ham, they've just gone into the 90th minute. West Ham 1, Brighton 1. And we're about to just tick over into the 90th minute in Portman Road as Trippier's just on the ball on the near side. Lovely trap on the chest. Finds Almiron in a bit of space. Predominantly left-footed, of course. The fourth official's going to put the board up now to indicate how much added time. We're going to get 4 minutes once again at the end of this game. Down to a couple of goals and a couple of substitutions as well. So
yeah, I mean, I actually think that if it was 0-0 or 1-1 right now, we'd probably be getting
Agreed,
about 6.
Yeah.
There'd probably be a little bit more time because we have had a few stoppages. But as I say, nobody from Ipswich is going to complain that the game's going to finish a couple of minutes earlier. Neither will Newcastle. The travelling faithful there from the northeast looking very happy, and there don't seem to be too many going for the exits early here either.
No, and I mean both teams happy to hear that full-time whistle for two very different reasons, of course. Newcastle had this game won long ago. Ipswich had never really been in the game whatsoever. Fabian Schär just to Dan Burn on the far side. The big 6'7" man from Blythe feeds it down the line to Lewis Hall, who's going to go all the way back to Dubravka. 3 minutes of the additional 4-2 play, and Newcastle just going through the gears and happy to see out the remainder of this game. And it's been, like I said, very professional, very organised for Newcastle defensively and offensively, taking the chances when they've come, but also they've kept Ipswich at bay. There's been some really good challenges, really good blocks in there. Of course, they haven't tested Newcastle's backline as much as they would want to, but Newcastle have stood the test when they had to.
They have. I think that from Newcastle's point of view, the way they've played going forward has meant that Ipswich have been on the back foot right from the start, and they've never really been able to recover. And on the few occasions when they have actually seen a bit more of the ball, then Newcastle have looked very accomplished in trying to soak up the pressure. So yeah, it's been a very good afternoon from Eddie Howe's side.
Sean Longstaff on the near side on halfway, and they're just keeping hold of the ball at the minute. Ipswich can't get near them, and Trippier's just moved it to the far side, halfway inside the 4 minutes allotted at the end of this game. And Newcastle are 4-0 to the good, and they'll go up to 7th position, and Ipswich will stay in the relegation zone on 12 points. And Newcastle just eating the seconds away every second, and Ipswich can't get even near them.
No, they can't. No, I say if the referee entered the game now, I don't think anyone from Ipswich's side would complain. They're still doing their best to press it, but I say Newcastle, it's been a very accomplished performance, and say Eddie Howe will be very pleased that his side have dealt with all of this so well, and on to the next one for them now.
And Dan Burn just fancying a run himself, drops it right to Lewis Miley, feeds it to Anthony Gordon, who's come deep for the ball this time. Anthony Gordon, there's players forward here. That's a really good ball for Harvey Barnes, 1-on-1. He has a man to slot in. He has, but he's going to feed it back to Lewis Miley, and then a shot comes in, and it is into the back of the net now, eventually. And well, it's Dan Burn of all people there, Paul, to make it 5.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just shows you how laid back Newcastle are. That in a little bit of possession play towards the end of the game, a ball into the box. There was no corner, no set piece, and yet somehow Dan Burn is there inside the 6-yard box to sweep in a rebound after a bit of play down the right-hand side. And it's that big smile on his face. He's delighted, and so he should be, because he's kept a clean sheet for his side. And now he's scored, so if you'd have him in your fantasy team, you'd be loving it. But in the meantime...
Might be a foul.
There may be a foul here. I mean, I hope whatever it is, I hope they don't take too long over it, but there may be a foul from Longstaff. Yeah,
little clip on Morsey's heel. So may just wipe the smile off Dan Burn's face. He started the attack, really. It was a lovely ball through from Gordon to put Barnes 1-on-1. Really unselfish for him to play it across to that man he was looking for in Dan Burn. And well, now there's questions of, is he offside? I mean, he's practically in the goal. Did it come off an Ipswich man? A lot to try and clear up here. It's not going to mean much. It'll mean a lot to Dan Burn, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really change anything about it in the end. You've got to credit Barnes for being so unselfish, but I think this will get chalked off.
It may well do. Yeah, whatever they do, as you say, I hope they don't take too long over it. We don't like VAR delays. Oh, I don't know. I mean,
is it offside? Is it a foul?
I don't think it's a foul on Morsey, because Morsey's already lost the ball, as far as I'm concerned. But it looks like the goal has been chalked off. It won't count. We're over the 4 minutes, but for the time being, we play on, and it's only 4-0.
Dan Burn's still smiling, and it was some achievement to start the attack. Would have been a beautiful team goal. He's the one that started it. But it is chalked off, and it does remain 4-0 to Newcastle. Heads go up. We're over the 4 minutes added. Of course, we went to VAR for about half a minute to a minute, so still got half a minute or a minute still to play. Tonali, just inside his own half, feeds it to Trippier. He'll carry it over halfway on the near side. He'll just check back. Don't really want to force the issue now. And Fabian Schär just across to Dan Burn. Stuart Atwell has a look at his watch, and I believe he does blow, and we've known it for a while, but it looks like all 3 points have gone the way of Newcastle in the end. Professional display. Ipswich 0, Newcastle 4.